rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued. She'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years, and let her sew again.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I am going to start putting Florence back together again. It's actually been quite a while since I painted her, so her clear coat is set up nice and hard. I really like that. I really like the way it feels after a week or so. And I can tell you that after I did the gold paint, I did come back and put another thin layer of clear coat on top of it. I think it really topped it off very nicely. So yeah, let me go ahead and get the camera a little bit closer and we'll put it together. Okay, so I'm going to get started with the wheel here. I just have it set on. You know what, I'm going to stick some oil in there really quick just to keep her lubricated and everything. I don't want her to get stuck again because I did have to use the gear puller to take her off. Let me get my little bag of screws. Again, I have everything separated into its individual little baggie. So I'm gonna get a little magnetic ashtray thing. Dump all the little components in there so I have everything safely together. So there's this little screw that I need to stick back into the side. I believe I'm going to need to line that up over here where this groove is. Okay, I was just beating myself up because I had this little screw saved in the right baggie, but the little hole, can't see it, that's right there, there's no way this screw fits in that hole. It's just too small. You know what? I need to turn my lights on. Hang on a sec. That would help. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? Have I lost the right screw and everything? Well, this screw goes in this hole here. It's this mechanism that holds it on. So this is spinning, okay? Where this groove is where I need to line up this hole. All making much more sense now. So it is all tapped down. Actually, before I put this in though, I want to deal with the little clutch mechanism area here. So let me pull it back out. There's a little tab. Come on. Okay, sorry about that. There's a little tab that goes right here that you engage this way to set the clutch when you're going to do the binder. The bobbin winder. So I need to get that in place. There's a little screw here that's going to hold it. So I just screw that all the way through here. There's a little hole in that tab to hold it on. Okay, I actually had to use my little razor blade and shave a little bit of paint out of the little slot here so that this thing could engage, but now it is, so when it's pulled away, this stays still and the wheel moves freely. When it's engaged, everything moves together, okay? So that is all put together. I need to go ahead and put this little screw into the side up here. And finally tightening up the main screw at the very end, just to hold it in place really well. All right, come on, babes. So that is everything engaged together. That is separate. Okay, all is good. Okay, I'm going to start putting the bottom side back together again. Remember, I had to leave this piece in because this was not coming out. So first thing I'm going to do is take this screw back out. When I cleaned it, I tried to put the screws back in where they were so I would not lose anything. And this is going to connect to this little bar that I could not get out. There's an oil hole right here, so I want to make sure that I oil in there. And I will do the same when I reconnect it down below. And there is a nut. I'm just going to have to get both of my hands together here. This screws in, and then there is a nut that comes in on the other side over here. So now that that is on, I'm going to go ahead and slide it over this little cam area right here. It slides up, and I will be oiling that in its oil hole. And there's a couple of little pivot screws that go through each side here. Where are you, pivot screws? They are right here. I'm going to put them in to hold this bar in place. And I'm just going to screw these in. I'll probably have to adjust them later. Just putting them in so that this cam looks like it's fairly centered there. And I am initially looking for the little sweet spot where the bar doesn't rattle, but it's also not bound in place. Once I do find the proper adjustment, that's when you set the nuts so that they'll hold that screw exactly where it needs to stay. But I'm keeping these nuts pretty loose until I get that figured out. Okay, I've got that there, and I'm going to go ahead and put some oil on all kinds of little oil holes that I see in here, just to try to get it to spin nice and smoothly while I'm working on it. At this point, I'll put a lot of oil and I can just wipe it up later. Okay. All right, so I can adjust this back and forth later as I need to. All right, I got a new camera bracket that I'm trying out over here at my other workbench, because when I flip my machine upside down, like I have it here, this bench works a whole lot better. So what I'm trying to do right now is reconnect to this shaft, which is going to come in over here, this piece, and I've got a couple little pivot screws here that I need to tighten up. Looking at my supplies, I only see one nut, so I need to look back at my video and find out why only one pivot screw has a nut. Well, when I look back on my video, neither one of these little ends of these little pivot screws had a nut on it, so you know, there you go. I just slid it in place over here, the little fork over that cam, and I'm gonna put the bigger, turn it so you can see, the bigger pivot screws in the ends, obviously with my screwdriver, because I just keep twisting the nut, which is getting me nowhere. And I can look and see that my battery is just about dead. So I'm going to go ahead and get this put in. That's going to take care of these two big screws. I have these more to figure out a place for in this mechanism, and I will be right back with a new battery. Okay, I'm back, and I'm going to try to get my bobbin area put back together. As you know, I was not able to remove this entirely, so I did my best to clean it and polish it in place, which I know is not the best, but you know, we make do. I'm looking for my little bottom of oil. I'm going to put just a bit of oil right around this very edge here and set the little bobbin case inside. There's a couple little tabs in here, and I've got it set. My problem is I'm not sure if I'm supposed to set it this way or this way, because they are 180 degrees apart from each other. And I keep trying, and I'm not sure if it's going to make a difference, but it is spinning, you know, so I am just going to put it in one way, hope for the best, and if when I test it out it doesn't work, well, I know that I will have had to put in the opposite way. So let me get out my other pieces that are part of this assembly here. Okay, so I have this piece, that's attached to this little arm down below. This, is that on a spring? It should be. This is that little clamp. Okay, so this slid under this little spring-loaded stud here, the clamp. You pinch this little lever and it opens up like a clamp, okay? And I've got a tiny, tiny screw and a tiny, tiny spring, a screw, and this little bar. So fun fact, I was so busy thinking about this that I completely forgot about this. And I have this upside down. This little, hang on, let me flip her over here. Okay, see how this little bracket is aiming up? Well, maybe you can't. This way you can. It's supposed to be aiming down. So I need to take apart a few things, get this put back in so it is angling down so that this bracket can come straight across and connect back into my bobbin race. So give me a few minutes. Let me undo all of this. I have my tiny spring and everything in my little safekeeping tin here. I'm just going to set that aside and fix this, and I'll be right back. All right, so I've got it flipped the other way. I have it fairly loose because I want to be able to place this, and I have this fairly loose too. I loosened that screw up. So I can place this exactly where I need it, tighten this screw up, and then make this adjustment for where it needs to be. So it's connected, it's just loose. So now I'm going to come back over here and work on that crazy little bracket right here and its tiny screw again. I realize that I'm crazy at this point because I was trying to put the screw in the totally wrong place, and now I understand why it won't work. Look, see, there's a little hole right here, and when I was taking my machine apart, this thing just kind of exploded, so there you go. But this machine, this spring fits inside of that little hole, and it butts up against this part down here, that little nub at the bottom, that part of the bracket. It doesn't go inside this hole at all. I almost destroyed this little spring trying to get it in there. So don't do that. Forget everything I said about that before. This is just a little lever. It gets screwed on there nicely. But this spring is what is going to give this the want to stay clamped on over the bobbin inside there. Okay, so now that I have it put back together correctly with this little release, the spring will make it snap back, and that will release the bobbin. The bobbin falls in there. So that's what's keeping the bobbin from falling out. There you go. Okay, so at this point, I still don't have this attached. I don't have my feed dogs in. I was just playing with the bobbin. And these bobbins go in a little differently. So this is the old thread. I did not take the thread off of here so I'd have something to play with before I got the bobbin winder done. So from the instructions that I printed out, what I can figure out is the thread's coming this direction, okay, that way. If I'm looking at it, it's clockwise. On the little bobbin case, there's a little scrolly cutout area here. So I'm going to put it in and pull it through that little hook, okay? So as I tug it, it's spinning clockwise. Then I pull it all the way across this opening here, okay, all the way across there and down. And there's another little hook you can't see because it's behind the bobbin. but it hooks underneath there between a little piece of metal here and the spring. It's the tension. And then once it's behind there, you pull it the rest of the way up, okay? So then it's coming straight out the top. I don't know if I have this spring adjusted properly at this point or not. I'll just have to play with it when I get the needle in. So then this little lever, I push to the side. And here's my question though. If I'm holding it, and granted it's going to be, this way, I just have my machine turned on its back, so putting it in this way is a bad thing. But there's not a locking mechanism. Like on a Singer, you lift out the little flap and it locks the bobbin in. This doesn't, so as soon as I turn it upside down, the bobbin wants to fall out. So I'm just assuming that that's because I have my machine oriented incorrectly at this point. So I just dropped it in, and that's what I have, okay? So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put my feed dogs in, which go right here. Okay, here they are. Sweet little puppies. I have a nice little screw, my feed dogs, and a nut. And I have a picture. How great is that? But it looks like this is just supposed to slide in there, and for some reason it's very tight. And remember, I had a very hard time getting it out. I think this is just a tight fit. So let me put my little screw and washer down so I don't drop it, and get this little piece wedged in here. There you go. It's just a tight fit, but it does belong. And it looks like there's about 1/4 inch of play that you can adjust the feed dogs up and down, so that is good. Good to know. Oh, I dropped my little thing. I'm just being clumsy. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and screw that on here if I can. I'm having one of those days where my fingers feel very fat. All right, so I'm just leveling it with the bottom. The feed dog end of the bracket is just leveled with the very bottom here. But I can lower them. Wrong. No, I can lower them quite a bit if I need to. It looks like someone had fun with this screw at one point. Okay. So there that goes, and it's moving, so that's good. Now I need to connect this piece over here, and it has that little nut that has the cutout on it, so it can slide back and forth in that slot. And I have a couple little screws. Why 2 screws? I don't remember why I have 2 screws. But this gets on here, and I'm going to need the one with the taller. See how the shoulder of this, the width of this nut matches up with the shoulder of this screw? Well, it should match up with the shoulder of that screw. Maybe that's the wrong one. Ah, no, that is right. Okay, so there's a little hole on the side here where that side screw is going to get locked in. This nut does need to go in here. It's just being obstinate there. Okay, so I've slid that nut into the shoulder area of this screw. Okay, so now this whole thing should be able to get screwed in here, keeping that little flat area of that nut lined up in the little groove here. And this bracket is still loose. I still do need to tighten it up again. I just wanted to get everything settled first. Okay, so this bracket is going to keep everything from wanting to fly out. It has a little groove on top. So that's good. All right. And if I turn the wheel, it is moving freely, so we're still good. Okay, so now this little screw can go in the side down here. I love these, but they're not magnetized. And sometimes I just need a magnetized screwdriver to save my sanity. So I'm going to get it started with one here. Such is life, but when I get it to the point where I need to crank, then I'll bring these boys out. Okay? And that's the wrong bit. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up this bracket, which is right here. Okay, got that tight. So now I'm going to turn it again, make sure everything is still good. And it is, looks good. Okay, so if I flip her up here, you know what? I think it is about time to start working on all of this stuff right here. I need to go ahead. No. I'm not going to put all of the plates and everything on here until I get this stuff in, because I may need to get in here and adjust these feed dogs with the needle height and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this and that face plate that has all of the needle bar, presser bar, and everything on it. There is a little screw here that I do need to back out. I just put it in there for safekeeping. So I'm going to turn this really quick while I'm thinking about it and back it out so that I can get what I need to inside this little hole here. Before I get too busy with all of the technicalities, I am thinking of putting some of my pretty little plates back on. You know, things like that. I'm just going to screw this on. I will come back and put the rest of it on after, but there's a plate that needs to go here. There is a thread bar with a little plate that goes on top. I'm just going to get all of those pretty things put on real quick. Okay, so I have this little piece here, the little slightly bent thread spool. I think I put this on upside down. No, I didn't. Okay, because the thread guides back here are for using with the bobbin winder, so that's okay. I also put on this little plate here, and on my box I put this little plate on. I'm going to work on this little area that you cannot see, this little area right here. There's a little groove, and I have a piece that has a little spot that fits in that groove. So let me see here. Alrighty. So this little bearing is going to roll around inside that groove. Okay, so I got it set in place. I cleaned out that groove a little bit better. And I'm going to put this on. Just turn it and see how it goes. Lift her up here. She goes this way. Okay, so everything is moving very freely there. That is good. Let me cinch her up. And then this little cover piece, this little piece goes like this. So there should be plenty of room for this part to operate out here. So we're just going to pop her back on. Look around for my screwdriver. and set this in place here and screw this little cover screw on. So if I turn her, all is good, all is good. Okay, now I think I'm ready to get started with this stuff. Now, I need to tell you, I have no clue how to put that tension mechanism together, but when I was taking it apart, I was looking frantically, and I did find there's a video on YouTube of someone, I can't remember who it is right now, I'll put the link on when I get to it, showing how to put it back together again. So I am going to pause for a moment, go in the house where I have some good internet, and try to find that video so that I can pull it up out here. Okay, so before I go in the house, I'm going to go ahead and put this little bar back on. Thankfully, it's kind of a foolproof piece because the screw has a tapered head and only one of these holes is tapered. It's tapered only one way, and then it's going to screw into this hole here where I backed that other screw out a little bit ago. Alright, I found the video I was looking for. It's by a YouTuber called 𝐷𝐾at with no space in between, just 𝐷𝐾at. And it says White Rotary Sewing Machine Tension Disassembly and Reassembly, which is right up my alley. It's short and sweet. So I am just going to play her video step by step and work my way through putting this zoo of things back together. I really don't want to have to pain you by making you watch me watch a video and figuring it all out. Okay, well, her video got me most of the way. So this is what it looks like on the inside. That's just pressed onto that pin. And this is the outside. I got the spring on top of the cam, or that little cog thing. I have the spring exposed over here so it can grab the thread and be under tension, okay? Now her machine was different from mine in here. She had a whole different little lever and everything. So I get the idea. The idea is that your lever that goes up and down is pushing this spring down. So I am going to put my little lever out here, and I have a washer and a little screw that's going to go in here so that I can move this up and down. Okay, so now when I push this lever down to the tight indicator, it pushes down on this spring tightly, which then affects this down here. And when I let it up, it totally takes all the pressure off of this spring, which also affects this down here. And now the only piece that I still need to put in is this one. And this looks to me like the kind of a mechanism that's going to go where when you lift your feed dogs, it's going to release the tension. It looks like something like that. Okay, so I got this in place. This little lever, there's a spring that you can kind of see in the front right here. That's what the thread goes in, okay? This little bracket down here gets hooked underneath that spring. So when you raise the presser bar, I believe, at this point, I believe it's going to lift up that spring. And I'm assuming that has something to do with releasing the tension. Okay, I'm going to start tackling the presser bar. And so the first thing I'm doing is making sure that I can get my parts in, because I do have a few coats of paint in here. So like this is the bracket that needs to be able to slide up and down there, and now it does. This is the presser bar that needs to be able to go up and down in here, and it does. And this bracket needs to be able to slide up and down inside of this little slot there, and it does. So I think I'm pretty safe to go ahead and try to get everything put together. So I'm gonna work from the bottom. And so I have that in place. This gets put in, and that was a really troublesome screw when I was taking it apart. Okay, so I have my presser bar, feeding it up through here. I got my first little block. I still don't know how that works with my presser lifter. I'll have to figure that out. Then I have it feeding through my second block, and the spring goes above that up here, okay? I may have to take this out again, don't know, but for right now I'm just kind of working my way through all of it. I have a little screw that's going to go on there and clamp this little bracket closed some more. I'm going to go ahead and put it in so I don't lose it, but I'm not tightening it yet because I'm sure I'm going to need to make some adjustments to that. So I'm just putting it on barely so I can still move it up and down if I need to. Okay. And at the very top, I'm putting my cap on so I don't lose my spring. Same thing, just barely starting to thread it. So this isn't really under pressure, it's just holding everything where it needs to be. Because I still need to figure out how my presser bar lifter bracket goes in there and operates with this tension release. So, okay, I just had to take the presser bar all the way out because the problem is there's a little nub that sticks out here. You can see it right there. That nub goes inside this little lever. That's what's going to make it move in and out. And I did not have it inside that little slot. So I need to get it to hold its place in there. Hang on. Anyhow, that's the problem. So now I have the little nub in there, so when I lift it and lower it, it's going to influence this little lever. So now I can put my presser bar back in. Okay, so now this is still loose, this is still loose, but they are there, they are in there. So now I can put my spring back in, push my presser bar up a little further, and start threading my little cap on here to hold everything in place. Okay, I'm back. I had to go get a new battery, glass of water and stuff. And I just wanted to mention that on machines that you are completely unfamiliar with, like this one, I've never done one of these types of machines before. And I try to record everything that I take apart so I can put it back together again. I think that my problem is that so many times when I'm working on them, they are just completely nasty. So that when I have a camera in a dark place, recording things that are covered in stuff, it's kind of hard to be able to tell the little intricacies, like where that little nub was, or when I undo one screw and a spring flies out of somewhere totally unexpected. It's kind of hard to figure out where it came from when everything is so covered in yuck that you can't even see the holes or anything. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now, but I wanted to point one thing out. If you remember, or if you saw the video where I was taking this machine apart, I was kind of freaking out about this little screw here, okay, because it didn't make any sense to me. Well, I know why that screw is there now. Because of the way this is put on, there is no way that, like with a Singer, you pull the plate off, you line everything up, you can adjust the height of the presser bar with the plate off. You can't do that with this. So this screw is what is going to allow me to adjust the height of my presser bar while this is completely attached to the machine. I mean, it should have been obvious before. I don't know why it just hit me, but it did. And I was like, oh, well, that's fabulous. So anyway, just wanted to show you that. So here is my tension mechanism moving up and down. When I lift my, oops, it goes this way. When I lift up, well, pretend it's under pressure. I don't have the spring appropriate here. Come on. This presser bar lifter is going to lift that, and what I want you to see is that the little slidey lever in the very back is moving. That is what's going to release tension as I lift this bar, okay? So it's all coming together. It's just a little bit slower because there's new things in here, but that's kind of fun. That's the puzzle of it all. I love that. It's a great challenge. Okay, I went ahead and put my little presser foot on here where I think it makes sense for it to be. I can loosen it and adjust it if I want. This is the little thread cutter. I think it makes sense there. I'm not quite sure, but at least from this position I can just go chunk and cut my threads. So honestly, I like this version of a thread cutter better than the Singer version. And that's one thing I've noticed. Singer's very popular, you know, millions and millions of them out there. Great machines in general. But some of these smaller names, the New Home, this one, they're great also. I think that it's kind of sad that they were, you know, that they went out of business as they did, but we're, you know, as you do. I just wanted to say I think that they are also good machines. And you know what? I need to turn this so I can get my needle bar up in here. So it looks like that's a little tight. So let me spend a few minutes working my needle bar back and forth in here where I got a little bit of paint in. It's a little bit stiff, so I just want to probably put a little bit of oil in there and work it around to work out any paint that might be in there. Okay, so I want to show you, this is my needle bar. This little post is going to go on there. There is a little divot in the needle bar where this needs to line up, and then I have a little screw that goes in there, okay? So I need to pay attention to where that is because I can't slide this on until after it is partway in here. So just going to, it was in there a moment ago, come on. All right, so I'm going to put my little put it this way. All right, so I know based on my previous video that when my needle bar is in its correct position, this is what it looks like. There's two sides to this. There's one that has a divot and one that is flat. The flat side is on the open area. And because the little hole in my needle bar is right here on the side, I know I need to turn this little thing this way because the screw can only go in that way. All right, so once I get it up here, I'm rotating it so that that little divot is pointing up, or at least up enough that I can line all of this up and put my little screw in there. It's a tiny little screw. And tighten it in. I think that's enough. It doesn't need very much. So then when I rotate it back, it's going to hold the needle bar in place. And this is what locks onto this little bar that we put onto that front cam. Now on the top, I have this little deal here. If I don't drop it, okay. There's a little nub that is sticking out and a little hole there, which it goes over. And it's just part of the tension mechanism. And then I can screw the little cap for the needle bar on, and I'll tighten that up later. And that is in place. Okay, so I think we're good. Just want to make sure everything works before I close it up. Well, I got my plate. It's just sitting on here. It's not attached. And I looked down and I had an extra piece. It was this little thing. And I couldn't think of what it was for the life of me. And so I just went through, reviewed everything. That is the little spring that goes underneath here so that there's a little bit of pressure on the little clutch. So took that back off. I'm going to put this little screw in here and tighten it up, and then I'll finish working on the front here. All right, so now I'm going to try to get everything finalized. So once I lock this on, I can't get back in. So when I pushed it on, there's that little peg on the front part that goes into the little hole on that arm that's on the cog on the main piece here attached to the main shaft. Got to remember to turn away from me. If I turn away from me, the needle bar is going to go up and down. Sounds so good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put my screws. There's a big one on the top and another one on the bottom just to hold this on. And before I forget, I am going to go ahead and put my bobbin winder back on. Just going to screw it in place over here. Okay, I don't know if you can see because it's kind of low. There's a cutout on here, and there's a little peg that's part of the casting of the main machine. The cutout fits over that little peg. That little cutout's going to limit the motion that you can move this up and down. So let's see here. All right, back it out of here so I can move it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put my plate here so that I can figure out how high I need to set my feed dogs and how low I need to set my presser bar. I did clean up the plate. It did not want to polish to a high degree of polish, but that's okay. It's cleaner than it was, and she is over 100 years old. So if there's a little bit of wear on there, I think that that's acceptable. So this is what her plate looks like now. It looks like it needs to be lower. It's pushing up on the plate. So I have the adjustment screw right here handy. I'm just gonna back it off a bit. No, I don't know the specs on this, but I can just figure things out. That's my way. It's very tight in this little bracket. I'm gonna tap it down. Give me something to tap on. How about this? Okay. Let me try to put it back on here and see what that looks like. Yay, okay, that looks better. Oops, I forget I need to go the opposite way. When they are down, they are completely down. And when they are up, they're up. You know, it's not super aggressive, but they are up. So I'm going to go ahead and put the screws in here, and that's enough that I think I can set the presser foot height. Okay, so I got my presser bar height, I think, adjusted well, but when I lift it and then I go to lower it, it doesn't come down again. So I think what I need to do is pull this off again in that upper bracket. I need to adjust that because it's that upper bracket that the spring is pushing on. I think I've got something not quite right there. All right, I think I got it. This screw up here is basically the one that's holding your presser bar where it needs to be. So when I just place it up here so it's level, and with the presser bar lifter completely down, it's down against the feed dog, so I'm good. All right, so taking it out then, with this tightened up in the right position, then this screw here, I think, is only holding this block in place. It doesn't actually hold, it's not meant to bear the weight of the bar. That's this one's job. This one's just holding this in place. And then this, you can lift it halfway, and there's a position where it'll stop. And if you need it lifted even more, you can lift it up just a little bit more. Okay, so I think that is good. I need to go ahead and put this back on now with the little stud engaged here. This little stud goes in there, and see if I can get it back together again. I almost forgot to put my little back plate back on, so I'm gonna do that really quickly. All right, I got her threaded. You can see it's kind of at a funky angle. Let me see if I can turn the light on here, if you can see those threads a little bit better. So at the top here, there's a little wheel it goes through. Here's a guide. It comes down, loops around this hook, and then comes back up kind of off to the side towards the front. And here's the thread take-up lever, goes through there. And then it comes back down through this little guide down here on the needle bar, and then thread from the outside in. And I just threaded it. I turned it once and it did pick up the bobbin, so I'm extremely hopeful. I have set her into the box that Mark made for her a little bit ago, and just going to put a piece of paper towel under here and see what happens. If she sews, this will be her first stitching in, my goodness, who knows how long. Whoops, wrong way. I have her set at her longest stitch length, and I'm using a paper towel because I use a lot of oil when I'm getting started, so that helps absorb things. And wow, the tension's good. So it helps absorb things, and it gives me a test piece. So let me turn you down here. Look at that. Whoops, wrong way. I need to remember to turn away from myself. Okay, I'm gonna adjust the stitch length. It was at 7, I'm gonna take it down to 5. And it did make it smaller. I'm going to take it all the way down to between 2 and 3, which is, wow, that's very small. Let's pop it back up a hair. A lot of these old sewing machines had insanely small stitch lengths available. I don't even know how that even worked. It's like perforating things. But, all right, let me go ahead and pull this out. If I lift my lever all the way, will it release the tension? Will it? Maybe there's a trick to it. Ah, you have to have the take-up lever up for it to release the tension. That's good. Okay, let's see here. So the spots where it went through, that's oil on the needle. You know, it's just drying itself off here. Let me go ahead and get a piece of real fabric and see how it does. I would be trying her out on my new treadle stand, my universal one over there, but I need to order a new belt. The belt I had is too small, too short for it. Okay, away from me. She does spin very freely. I'm going to increase the stitch length so we can see something here. And take my take-up lever to the top, lift my presser foot, pull it out. The black is a very old thread. That was the bobbin that was in it. Okay, the orange, dirty orange here, that's the thread side. I don't know if you can tell, but it is actually pretty well balanced.
And knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living values she'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. And I showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years and let her sew again.